What's going on, guys? Soft-spoken shaman here. First things first, before we get into the story, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by hitting me up at thesoftspokenShaman@gmail.com. Once again, comments are shut off on this. I don't really want to deal with it. Best way to get in touch with me is one-on-one directly. Anyways, this video we're going to talk about the Amish. So where I live in northwest Arkansas, we have Amish all around, and technically Amish are found in their highest concentrations in Pennsylvania and Ohio, a lot of those mid-Atlantic states. What I'm going to do, I'm going to read the CBS News article, and then we're going to get into it. So, first things first. This article is called, Amish Mom Charged with Murder After Throwing 4-Year-Old Son into Ohio Lake to Prove Worthiness to God, police say. Second of all, guys, if you hear some shh noise in the background, unfortunately it's raining outside and I got a metal roof. There's really not too much I can do about it. If the quality really sucks, I'll record this later, but I'm going to give it a go right now. Okay. An Amish woman who told authorities she was testing her faith when she threw her 4-year-old son into an Ohio lake was charged Wednesday with 2 counts of aggravated murder in the boy's death. Authorities said Ruth R. Miller, 40, of Millersburg, Ohio, told investigators she believed she was acting at the direction of God when she allegedly killed her son Vincent at Atwood Lake early Saturday. The lead investigator with the Tuscarawas County Sheriff's Office, Captain Adam Fisher, said Wednesday that Ruth Miller repeatedly said in interviews with police that she threw the boy off the dock and into the water to give him to God. It did not appear that the gravity of the situation had sunk in, Fisher said. The woman's husband, Marcus J. Miller, 45, had apparently drowned while attempting to swim to an offshore sandbank hours earlier in another test of faith, Sheriff Orvis Campbell told reporters at a news conference on Monday. Their other children, a 15-year-old girl and twin 18-year-old boys, were also directed to perform water-based trials of their belief, but they survived. New Philadelphia Municipal Court online records indicate Ruth Miller was also charged with domestic violence and child endangerment regarding the older children. Authorities said Ruth Miller was receiving treatment at a secure mental health facility and had not been arrested by late Wednesday afternoon. A message seeking comment was left for her attorney, Scott Fromson. When first responders began to treat Ruth Miller, she was allegedly making concerning statements. As deputies questioned her, Campbell said the mother spoke about placing her son in the water to quote-unquote give him to God. She also attempted to run from deputies by hiding in a bush. Family members and the Miller's church said in a statement that the deaths do not reflect our teachings or beliefs but are instead a result of a mental illness. The ministry and extended family had been walking with them through their challenges, and they had also received professional help in the past. Campbell said Ruth Miller told investigators she believed she could walk on water, but when she tried doing so off the end of the dock, she simply fell into the water. Goodness, what a surprise. She and her husband went to this dock, and they jumped in the water because God was speaking to them and telling them to do things to prove their worthiness to God. I got some Mexican food burps that want to come up. Marcus and Vincent Miller were apparently both dead when authorities were called Saturday morning for a report of a golf cart having gone into the lake. Amish person golf cart. They were obviously not Schwarzentroopers or Old Order Amish. Campbell said Ruth Miller had driven it at a high speed into a stone wall on the lake shore with the 3 older children on board. The cart ended up fully submerged but visible, and her 3 children stood on it before getting out of the water. So maybe this wasn't just a test of faith with the water. If she'd driven it at a high speed into a stone wall, I don't know, my mind's eye is telling me they went through the wall into the water maybe. Maybe it was just a retaining wall or something. When a rescuer tried to get Ruth Miller out of the water, she told them to, quote-unquote, just pray for her. Classic, excellent advice. Park rangers heard concerning-type statements from Ruth Miller. The sheriff said there was a pretty immediate statement made that she had given her son to the Lord. Authorities soon realized her husband and 4-year-old son were missing. She began to express more that she had thrown the child in the water to give that child to God, Campbell said. But we didn't know where in the water. It's a big lake. He said Ruth Miller was in mental crisis. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like Aztec, or in the Levant, like giving your firstborn to Moloch. What's the bull? I forget what it's called. Amish people sacrificing their firstborn. I've never heard of it before, but hey, there's a first for everything apparently. Searchers focused near the dock where authorities said the Millers had apparently tried to walk on water the night before. Oh, that's an Amish party, I guess. Around 6 p.m. local time on Saturday. Yeah, most people drink the liquid. They don't try to walk on it, you know. Around 6 p.m. local time on Saturday, a diver found Vincent, his name is Vincent without a T, on the lake bed, not far from the end of the dock. Early Sunday morning, divers found Marcus Miller's body 53 yards. It's horrible if you're a bass fan, because, you know, the great Marcus Miller. I think he's still with us. I don't know. The coroner said autopsies and an investigation will determine the manner of the two deaths. So, go figure. I never would have thought that. The couple's surviving children were extremely confused and upset, Campbell said. Their mindset was that whatever their mother and father says is the way it is. They don't question anything. So when they were told to jump in the lake, they jump in the lake, he said. Amish are part of a Christian movement professing nonviolence, although they have their cases of domestic violence and sexual abuse. Advocates for abuse victims among the Amish say that although church leaders have acknowledged the problem, they need to do more to respond to abuse as a crime to be reported to civil authorities, not just as a matter of church discipline. The family lived in Holmes County, Ohio, which has an extremely large Amish community. They had gone to Atwood Lake, about 82 miles south of Cleveland, in a recreational vehicle as a getaway. And I think, yeah, that's all we have there. So, let's get into it. If you don't know, if you don't live amongst the Amish or you haven't had dealings with them, they're very interesting people, you know, and in terms of their family dynamic and their work ethic, they're amazing people. You know, we have numerous Amish conclaves around where I live. Now, many of our Amish came down from Iowa. You know, some of them came from Indiana, a little more old order sects, and these ones are a little bit more new order, meaning they may have cell phones, you know, not smartphones, but cell phones like big old, they look like landlines, almost like big old brick portable stations they charge them in. It's really interesting. But, you know, the men, the ethic is to work hard, and they work all day, because to them, a man is a unit of work, you know, and when a man is working, he's expressing what his, you know, what his reason for being is. And the women, they work at home, you know, they tend to the home and all that. And when the man comes home from work, he's treated like a god by his family. He's treated very, very well. You know, that's not the problem. And when you deal with Amish people, they're super cool. You know, for me, one of the things I do in my county where I live is I work with an Amish company, you know, run by a young man, and I manage their web presence. I created a website for them. I manage their web presence. I'm their webmaster, and basically I deal with client calls and booking and stuff like that. A lot of people who are not Amish, the way they interact with the Amish is by driving them from job to job or to home or whatever, you know, when they don't use their cart and buggy or their horse and buggy. But I basically am like the internet face for them, you know, to help them get more customers, because what they did before they met me for years has just been advertised in the local circular newspaper that we get once a week in this county, you know, a little advertiser paper. The problem with the Amish is when it comes to their religious beliefs, and I'm not knocking Christianity at all. The thing about the Amish, they're very naive, they're very innocent, meaning one who controls the community. The bishop is their vicar of Christ, like their literal God, pretty much, in human form. The Amish believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible, and I mean literal. Everything is taken at face value. It's a very childish worldview, you know. They don't see the symbolism at all. It's just the Word of God, right? And if you try to tell them about King James and about the provenance of these translations and how it might be a little bit of F-U-C-K-E-R-Y involved in the process, they just look at you like you've grown rhinoceros horns out your nostrils. They just don't want to hear it. It's not that they don't want to hear it, it's that it's troubling to them. Because like the policeman said in the article, they don't think, they just do what they're told. You know, from mom and dad, from the bishop, from the pillars of the community. And so, as you can see, this lady, Ruth Miller, I think was her name, she literally thought that she could walk on water. Now, first of all, what she did to the Amish is a mental health crisis. Because one of the tenets of Christianity or the Bible is to not tempt God, to not force his hand, which is what she was doing. You know, it's like an Amish Salem witch trial. throw your kids into the lake and see if they make it. Like, man, if you wanted to test buoyancy, you could probably do that at home in the bathtub. Suffice it to say, even the normal Amish, they want to distance themselves from that because it gives them a bad name. The people who are in the know, they know the Amish are not perfect. They're anything but. And they've got many problems. They don't have the problems necessarily that we have, but they have problems. Some of the most common are animal abuse. Not all of them, again. It's just a lot of them. Animal abuse is one thing, running their horses ragged, kind of abusing them, treating them poorly. Sometimes unscrupulousness in business. They're very business oriented, and so much they're so self-sufficient that their money, the reason why they acquire so much money is because they can go buy more land, go buy more combines for the farm or machinery or whatever, implements, infrastructure. So they're all about working all the time, and some of them get crooked dealing with the people of the world, what they call the English. Any of us that are not Amish, they call us English people. So I just wanted to make this video because if you haven't dealt with the Amish or lived near them or done business with them or even bought things from them, you wouldn't know this. You'd think that they live in some sort of self-made utopia, but they don't. And yeah, many of them don't have social security numbers. They weren't born in government hospitals, but many of them actually do pay tax. They pay property tax. I don't know if they pay income tax, but they do interface with society in some way. But what people latch on to is the based aspect of them, which is basically they have minimal contact with the government. They're not antagonistic to the government whatsoever. They just have minimal contact, and the government leaves them alone. So nowadays, especially with the whole alt-right and stuff, for years they've been lionizing the Amish and acting like they're just absolute paragons of what things should be, how things should be. And again, there's aspects of the Amish that are absolutely amazing, and how they structure their societies pretty good, but then again, you don't have to watch documentaries to understand that there are Amish people who are chomping at the bit to get out. I watched a documentary the other day about a young Amish man who's he's just a nice young guy, right? There's no mean bone in his body, but he's just fascinated with cars. He wants to become a wrench monkey, he wants to become a grease monkey. He wants to just wrench on cars. And the Amish are like, well, you can't do that because we don't drive cars. He's like, well, I want to learn. I really want to do that. And so he's trying to leave and go to, New York or whatever to go do that. And they're like, oh, well, we can't talk to you if you do that. You're self-banishing yourself. There's a lot of that in the Amish communities too, And they're right when they say that we have things like prawn and other temptations that really, have societally wrecked ourselves before we could check ourselves, And so they're right about that. But at the end of the day, how do you know if you're worthy if you aren't constantly being tempted? So to shield yourself from temptation completely or as much as you can, I don't even know if that's the right move, to live in a little utopian paradise where you can beat your horses and you can, go, work all day and knock up your wife and, sure, I guess some of that sounds cool, not except for the beating the horses part. But if you're not around and immersed in temptation, it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I think that's a muscle that maybe the Amish don't have. Maybe they're too innocent, they're too naive, if you know what I mean. It's just something I think about sometimes about temptation. If immersion in temptation, the degree to which you're immersed in temptation, to me it's almost like you're a trial by fire. How can you really become purified if you're not just burnished in the flame? You know what I mean? How can you forge metal without passing it through the... And I think sometimes the Amish are kind of sidestepping that reality. Anyways, I just wanted to share this story because I thought it was interesting. If you guys want to comment, what you can do is you can email me at thesoftspokenshaman@gmail.com. The other thing that YouTube has done is on my community posts, I allow for it. Nobody's done it yet, but I allow for it, where you can actually post on my community post. You can actually put up your own post, not just comment, but put up your own post. So you can do that if you want to. I'm totally fine with that. Anyways, thesoftspokenshaman@gmail.com is the place to hit me up, and I'll see you guys next time around. Oh, the other thing too is I do accept video requests again. Obviously they're paid, like you gotta throw me some bones to do it, but people have been asking me if I'll talk on certain subjects. Basically, yeah, just email me and we'll figure something out. Take care.